Hey everyone, good afternoon. Welcome to Philadelphia Magazine's virtual Secrets from the C-Suite presented by Comcast Business. My name is Fabiola Sinius and I'm a senior editor here at Philadelphia Magazine. If you tuned in last week, you know that this is the second part of this three-part virtual series. We're really excited to launch this series because we're trying to find connection to local business leaders who we feel can help us answer some big questions. And I think the biggest one of all is how do we begin to move forward together through this pandemic? So if you were here last week, thank you for coming back. If this is your first time, welcome. Our very special guest today is Rakia Reynolds. Rakia is a force, and we're so happy to have her here with us today. Rakia is the founder and CEO of Skai Blue Media, which is a multimedia communications agency. So I'm going to read Rakia's bio. Over a decade of leading industry leaders has positioned Rakia Reynolds as one of the foremost minds in strategic communications and business innovation as an advisor to top Fortune 100 companies and influential figures. As founder and CEO of Skai Blue Media, Rakia serves a robust and diverse client list, including Airbnb, Dell, M. Night Shyamalan, Morgan Stanley, Serena Williams, and more. An award-winning multimedia communications firm, Skai Blue Media works with people, products, and places on their business, branding, and bragging. I love that. A leader and tastemaker, Rakia is a proven authority in marketing, strategic communications, and business development. On stage, she expresses expertise that has captivated audiences across several industries, including branding and media, economic development, entrepreneurship, diversity and inclusion, and belonging. And in addition to Skai Blue Media, Rakia is the founder and CEO of Everyday Jane and fan of your brand. So today, Rakia and I are going to talk about how she's pivoted during this time, how she's helping organizations tell messages, how she's helping organizations show their consumers that they belong, how they're adding value for consumers. So we'll talk about that. And we'll also talk about the future of work and workplace at large. There's so many predictions out there right now about the workplace, and Rakia is going to help us work through a couple of those. So we'll talk for about a half hour, and then we'll have 15 minutes for questions from all of you. So during the discussion, we encourage you to drop some questions into the discussion box. You can find that in the navigation bar on your screen, and when the time comes, I'll be able to take a look at them. Then we'll wrap up at about 12:45. All right, here's a message from our sponsor, Comcast Business.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Mike Loudon, Vice President of Comcast Business here in the Philadelphia region. First and foremost, I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy during these challenging times. Comcast Business is proud to partner with Philadelphia Magazine to present the Secrets from the C-Suite virtual series. Throughout this series, we'll have conversations with some of the most influential business leaders in the region, and today's event is no exception. We hope the virtual discussion will be a welcome distraction from our current situation. Most importantly, I hope that the series provides key insights and serves as inspiration to those business leaders and aspiring entrepreneurs here today. As a business community, we're all facing challenges with COVID-19. Whether you are a small business having to temporarily close your doors or a large enterprise now dealing with a remote workforce, we have all had to adapt to this new normal. Comcast Business is no exception. We have quickly adapted to how we support our employees, our customers, and how we interact with our business partners. What has become more apparent than ever is that connectivity is critical to a business's success. At Comcast Business, we're helping businesses, both large and small, stay connected to the internet, data centers, customers, suppliers, their remote workforce. So when connectivity matters, Comcast Business is here. So if you're having challenges or want to take a look at your network, please don't hesitate to reach out to Comcast Business. We'd be happy to help. So once again, thank you for joining us to get in on Secrets from the C-Suite, and we hope to see you all in person very soon. Thank you, stay safe, and enjoy.
All right, thank you to Comcast Business for sponsoring this event series. All right, without further ado, I'd love to bring Rakia onto the screen.
Hey, Fabiola.
Rakia, how are you?
I'm good. It's a beautiful day outside. It's sunny here, so I mean, for me, what more can I ask for, right?
Right, and we're so happy to have you with us here today. As I was telling everyone, and I'm sure everyone already knows, Rakia is a force. So we want to just talk to you about how you're working through it, how you've transitioned your business, and just what kind of messages of hope you have for people. So let's start at the beginning, right? Take us back to February, early March. When did you realize the coronavirus was something that would really impact the way you do business and just the way you run your life in general?
Yeah, I mean, it started pretty early for me. I mean, I'd say that one of the telltale signs was South by Southwest. But before South by Southwest, we were meeting with a lot of clients for potential international business. So when I started to see their travel restrictions changing and people saying, hey, we may have to cancel for things that were, supposed to happen, at the end of March. So when we started seeing some of our international work change, it was like, okay, look at what's happening, internationally, pay attention to what's happening on the news. Yeah. And then it started to trickle into South by, which we had about 10 activations, speaking engagements for clients, workshops, panels, identity projects, you name it. We had all of these things sort of planned out. And I remember the night before South by Southwest got canceled, I was sitting around the table with some thought leaders in the world of tech, and they were saying, we were just sharing insights, and folks were saying, this is a lot bigger than we think. And when we started looking at contracts and things, disappearing, and then that next day South by was canceled. And I was like, okay, wow, things are really changing.
That's crazy, right? Because I feel like we've been at South by together, and just what it takes to put all of that together is insane. So then what became your priorities? How did you know these are the things that I'm going to prioritize? This is how I'm going to switch things up. Like, what were some of the early changes that you made at Skai Blue Media?
Yeah, so I mean, the first priority was a matter of safety. And when, travel and things like that started to, we started to get those, those signed indicators, it was, okay, let's cancel everything. For all of our internal team, it was all about canceling, non-essential travel. Do you need to travel there to see a client? Can you? And we've been, working in the world of this virtual vertical for quite some time. So doing digital media and marketing online, we were already set up. So for some clients, it would be, okay, we can't be there in person, but we'll Zoom in, or we'll do a webinar, or we'll, use Google Meet or Microsoft Teams, or one of the many tools that we had been utilizing for some of our clients who are, on the West Coast, and, some of them are international. So we had to, be positioned to uniquely work with some of these people. But initially it was a matter of safety and making sure my internal team was taken care of, and that those folks felt, I would say, I don't want to say good about what we were doing, but they felt confident in the approach that we were taking, to move forward. So canceling that travel, making sure that everyone was set up in their homes the way they needed to be set up. So, do you have the right technology? Do you have the right webcams? We immediately started making sure that our team had, accurate, and adequate webcams and web functions to be able to communicate online in an effective way, because we were like, okay, we have to shut down the office. People can't be coming in and out. Our team in New York, people weren't going to be coming to Philadelphia. The Philadelphians weren't going to be going into New York. So it was just really making sure that our infrastructure was ironclad, and then ensuring that our clients had the most accurate messaging for their toolbox. So we created an internal toolkit for all of our clients. It began with an instructional video by myself talking about the situation at hand. This is where we are. We're here for you. We're working on your behalf. And we're going to keep you up to date with the latest information that we think is helpful for you. And we're not the CDC or the World Health Organization. Here are the links to stay in constant contact with those organizations so that you can get, the science and the experts. But from an effective communication standpoint, we built out a toolkit for our clients, and we actually sent a refresh to that toolkit every single week for our clients to have the proper communication. So again, knowing the terminology, social distancing, physical distancing, pandemic, and all of the things that we started to see come out, we wanted to make sure that we weren't, not only were we prepared as Skai Blue Media, but also the clients that we serve.
Right. I feel there's a buzzy term out there, right? Future proofing. Do you think that applies to you, like this idea that if your company and your work is future proofed, you'll be able to absorb, whatever level of shock that comes your way? Would you like say that Skai Blue Media is future proof?
I wouldn't say we are future proofed. I think we're prepared. That old saying, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And I think we often operate in that mindset. Actually, in February, I met with a friend and like a colleague. We do a lot of work together. He's a data scientist that focuses on big data. And we were talking about putting out information around predictability and for small businesses so that they could figure out better ways to assume risk, right? And then right away, we were in this pandemic. And I think, a lot of futurists will say, use this tool or use the axis of information to find out or predict and use future proofing for your business. But I think it's preparedness over predictability. And if you can be prepared, you're able to work in more of a defensive mode than a defensive or reactive mode. And so we always talk about this way of, working with folks and being, for proactive communications, because you never really want to react to anything. And the truth is, no one knew this was coming. No one knew. And, for folks that say they have the answer or they know what, the future or recovery planning looks like, I wouldn't say don't believe them, but do your own research, because no one really has the answer right now, because no one could really predict, or the folks that I'm around or the people that I'm working with, no one could predict this was happening.
Right. When I think of Skai Blue Media, I think of the companies, like how vibrant you are. I think of you all as being so hands-on. If I go to an event and I see the Skai Blue Media team, y'all are coordinated, everyone's like happy. How do you, has your leadership had to take a huge shift during this to kind of keep that morale up, keep that energy up, especially when all of you are at home? Like, how do you keep that kind of Skai Blue Media identity going through something like this?
Yeah, I think, a couple of things. We've always, been in the ethos of trust and transparency. That's why, we all wear the color blue. We study color psychology, and blue is the color of trust, honesty, and sincerity. I think the leadership piece has been more transparent. So there were instances before where I felt like, okay, I have to protect my team. They don't need to know the nuances of this conversation or this conversation, but because of the uncertainty of it all, I wanted to make sure that they had the same information that I was getting. They were getting information in real time, and we were never playing a game of telephone. So we began this, this internal communications infrastructure where we were operating on these 5-day sprints, where we were in the world of comms, it's like you plan out, you have 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, but because information was changing day by day, hour by hour, we wanted to make sure that our systems were set up so that we were planning week by week. And so we then began these daily stand-ups so that we could communicate and connect in the morning. And I think as a leader, you typically want your team to be really autonomous and, let them go ahead and do what they do and let them be the experts. But in this time, I felt that it was really important to be a leader that was really, really connected, and not a leader that wanted to micromanage or measure every step of the way, but a leader to tap in to see how do you feel, right? Like we would start our stand-up calls with, how do you feel? And what is your intention for the day? And then we would focus on, goal plans and what are you working on with clients. But the important thing for me was, how are you feeling and how are you coping through this? And for folks that were, quarantining and socially distancing and physical distancing by themselves, those were the folks that I wanted to make sure we were paying extra special attention to. I'm privileged to be inside and safe, but I have a family. I have 3 kids. I have a husband. I have a dog. I'm constantly, my daughter is sitting across the room right now. So I'm always, I'm able to hug them and touch them. So I think, I felt really privileged to have that. And so for the folks that didn't actually have that, I wanted them to have that virtual hug from, their fellow Skai Blue Media team members, whether that was on doing the virtual, we would have virtual drinks, and then we did a lot of team building exercises to help to, expand our creativity and our mind. But I would say the most, the concerted effort was on connectivity with the team.
Great. So what kind of new opportunities have come out of this for y'all? Like, and especially thinking of like virtual opportunities, like how did you step into this with confidence and say, you know what, we're going to go after, we're going to show our organizations, how to take this by the horns and do things virtually?
Yeah, I mean, we, again, doing a lot of social media and digital communications and online storytelling was something that was already within our wheelhouse. But as you can imagine, with the uptick of how consumers were behaving online, people consuming more television, more lives, and I studied psychology in undergrad. So I started thinking about sort of how, Maslow's hierarchy of needs sort of related to our work from the physiological sense, the security and wanting to belong. So we sort of exercised those things, took a little bit of that psychology and integrated that into our work. And our work has shifted where we're doing a lot more online. We're still providing clients with experiential marketing, where before it might be, like those events you talk about, going to an event, seeing something, sensing something, tasting something, touching something. But now we've turned that into, what is your online experience? How do people see you? How can you show up for people? How do you use words that empower people or can captivate an audience? I mean, with 800 million people online with Facebook and Instagram, how do you cut through that clutter? So for us, it's really giving our clients the tools in order to do so. We recently started working with Jill Scott, and we were able to be sort of the hands behind the communications on her behalf and Live Nation Urban and Sean G's behalf to do the Versus event. And as you know, like that had over 3 billion media impressions. And at one point there were 6 million people participating in this live, over 750,000 people on a live interacting and communicating at one time. So, I think our work has increased with just the magnitude of folks that are now sort of seeing our work. Now, we've been doing lives for, quite some time and doing online webinars and things like that, where before there might be thousands of people, and now we're looking at millions of people that we're addressing messages to.
I was on that live, and what was so funny was I saw you did leave a comment on the IG, and I'm like, I have a feeling Rakia has something to do with this right now. Like, that was so funny. But your point about cutting through the noise, I feel like there was a time like on Instagram when you would log on IG and you're just scrolling through stories. I mean, scrolling through lives, like everyone was live at the same time. So what's an example of a message, like, or I guess what kind of messages do you think people should be, or stories should people be telling more of now? And maybe is there something that you think we should be doing less of when it comes to telling stories and brands kind of selling themselves and trying to connect with people right now?
Yeah, I think the brands that do a really good job of this are the ones that are relatable. I think before we were operating in this sort of moment of aspiration and relatability. And right now we're leaning more to the relatability. I think folks that are spending time online, you have to know that we are of a moment that no one has ever experienced. No one knows how to plan for this, nor does anyone know how to communicate for this. However, we do know that we are a species that thrives and needs human interaction. And when people lack, hey, I can't go to that restaurant and like see someone, or I can't like go out and have a margarita with someone, then the online consumption will uptick because they need, just from a physiological standpoint, I need to be able to interact. I need to feel like I'm a part of a community. I need to feel like I belong. I mean, that's just how we as creatures operate. And I think if you can tell relatable stories of the moment, I think that's why TikTok is doing so well now. I mean, we are in a generation where people are using less words to communicate, right? That's why we see so many memes and GIFs and, Facebook just acquiring Giphy, because, I mean, brands know that people are communicating with less words and more of their body language. So what, the sort of that nonverbal aspect of how we utilize, communication. And I think if you want to cut through the clutter, some specific examples now, maybe use your Instagram page as your time capsule. Tell stories of the moment that you're going through. I mean, you don't have to go through every single granular detail, but it's a moment and a time capsule for you to reflect next year. Maybe you might archive some of those posts. It's like felt cute, might delete later, but you might come back to some of those posts to say, this is how I was feeling on May 21st of 2020 next year. So I say use your Instagram feeds or use your social media outlets to relate right now, and also to talk of things of the moment. And so when you see everybody talking about, baking bread, that's not by chance, right? That's how our brain, we needed that creativity, and we needed to expand our minds. So folks are learning new things, but they're also sharing those things so that their communities can learn. And I think, for the most part, I mean, obviously this is such a terrible time in our lives. I'm an optimist, so I do like to look at, the threads of the silver lining, and just to see sort of the community engagement with communities that may not have communicated before is something that does, bring me some joy.
That's beautiful. All right, I want to talk a little bit about the workplace, right? I feel like you do so much research, you put so much, research out there and from your findings. So I was looking at like some reports from Forbes, CNBC, right? Them just laying out predictions of what the workplace is going to look like, and what we're going to do differently after this. So here, I want to throw a couple of these predictions at you. Let's get your feedback. So the first one, CNBC is saying that the office is now, right, being able to work out of an office is now going to be seen as a status symbol, right? So remote work is up, and then if you're going back to the office, that's like a sign of status. What do you think about that?
I think it's to each his own. I would never, comment or tell someone what to do. It has to be, what is the governance and the legislation and lawmakers, what are they saying is the safest thing for you to do, and how does your company abide by those things? I think that a lot of folks work, really different. I mean, before all of this was happening, Skai Blue Media, we were working in the office 4 days a week. And on Fridays, we exercised something called Flex Fridays, where we would experiment. How does your productivity change when you're working at home? You have your computer. You don't have a lot of interruptions in the office. You're not meeting someone at the water cooler every 15 minutes to talk about what you just saw on television. And I think, listen, we do meet at the water cooler every 15 minutes to comment on something. But I think it is going to be a lot of folks over these past few weeks and past months are able to manage what productivity looks like, what output looks like. So I think folks will reevaluate, the future of the workplace differently. I mean, I have an office in Philadelphia and I have an office in New York. And I know for me, it's helpful for my Philadelphia office to be open. And when it can reopen and we all feel good about going back in, we will, but it's not going to be you have to be in the office. I think we've gotten to this point of some people may feel more comfortable working at home. Now, there are a lot of client interfacing things that, I have to do, and some of the folks that work at Skai Blue Media who are really client interfacing, that once we get on the safer side of things, they will go, they will resume and go back to that. But I think it's going to be a long time before folks can figure out exactly what this new normal is, because right now and for the next few months, nothing is normal.
Right. All right. Another prediction is that companies are going to have to focus on the mental health of employees more. So there are going to be benefits like around mental health support. Is that something that you see happening soon after this?
I mean, I think, that is definitely one of the sort of, it's the writing on the wall that we see. A lot of folks are just talking about, pan anxiety and the anxiety sort of culture that we have right now because of the uncertainty, and, confidence and predictability, and all of those things are built when you can be assured of something. And when you can't be assured of something, that's when, that's what the experts say, that, anxiety does creep in. So I think if folks, especially employers that have a sense of attunement and can really understand what their employees and their team members are going through, and they care about that, they probably will implement those things in the workplace. And I think it all depends on your company culture. Now, some folks won't do that because it doesn't really fit into the values and the belief system of their company. But I know for very high touch environments like communications and marketing and folks in the creative spaces, I think that might be an avenue that we will walk down.
All right. Another one is that overall companies are going to be more innovative, entrepreneur, people are going to be more entrepreneurial because the pandemic is kind of forcing us to think of new ways to do things and better ways to do things. So do you think that more people will become entrepreneurs?
I think more people will become entrepreneurial and intrapreneurial. Okay. Entrepreneurs, maybe. I mean, some, a lot of great companies happened after, the financial recession and sort of the depression that we were going in, and, around 2008. I know my company was built during that time, and, we work with Airbnb and they were built around that time. But I think, for some folks that look at it comparatively, like what we went through before versus what we're going through now, which are completely different things. Again, I can't underscore enough that this is nothing that we've ever been through before. So I think, yes, more entrepreneurs will come out of this. A lot of disruption and innovation will take place. But because folks are working in different capacities and having to innovate and create a lot more, you will then see a lot of intrapreneurial attitudes come about, and intrapreneurs, as I typically explain. So, the entrepreneurs are the folks that are the risk takers. They assume the financial risk. They are the people that are, putting themselves out there. The intrapreneurs are the folks that are built internally that help to keep the spark going. And I think for a lot, you can't have the entrepreneur without the entrepreneur, and you can't have the, entrepreneur without the intrapreneur. And for entrepreneurs, it's particularly important to understand that to be prepared in this environment and to be prepared in the future, you don't want to go alone. Now, for solopreneurs, it's a little different. I'm building a business by myself, but as my beloved former chief of staff used to tell us, have a friend-tor advisory board, keep people around you that you can bounce ideas off of, because you can't really do all of the things that you want to do in that solo, lone, sort of lone environment.
Yeah. All right. Another one is that face masks are going to become like a fashion accessory at the office. And I think that connects. Yeah. Do you want to tell people about Everyday Jane? And I'm curious, is Everyday Jane trying to come out with a line of face masks right now?
So it's funny that you asked, because we were just having this conversation about Everyday Jane a few weeks ago. About a year and a half ago, when we launched Everyday Jane, we had created something called the Travel Pod, because the concept of Everyday Jane was born when I was traveling for business, and I wanted something that would sort of protect me a little bit from the travel. So we created this Travel Pod that was really a built-in mask. So we created something a year and a half ago. So, you talk about like predictability, predictability and being prepared. We had already created one. We then, about maybe 4 months ago, said that we were going to update it, to make it a little more protective. So before all of this happened, we were in sort of the early stages of redesigning what that would look like. Do I think that, face masks and things will be, the new fashion, fashion accessory? Listen, I think protective wear and, forms and iterations of protective wear will be the new athleisure. Yes, we will see lots of it. And listen, I think it's a good thing if we can be diligent to be, great citizens where we are protecting ourselves in order to protect others. I think it's a great thing if we can make it an accessory.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of people just using crazy cool fabrics to make face masks, ones that are covering your neck. I'm very excited at what these are going to be.
But I want people to do their research, because there's some masks that are being created where, people can't breathe, right? And then you think about the implications of wearing things that don't have the right fabrication, and what you're what the bottom half of your face will look like. So folks that are out there creating masks and wanting to go down the route of, protective wear as the new accessory, just make sure you're collaborating with people and you're doing your homework and paying attention to the fabrication.
Great point. All right, I have one final one before we open this up to audience questions. So I hope you guys have been submitting those. So one big prediction is that the workplace is going to become more equitable for women. So just thinking about a lot of the things that women are fighting for in the workplace, one big one is, right, paid maternity leave. And so the pandemic is maybe helping organizations kind of to make changes that are already just in favor of women. So what do you think about that?
I mean, I think a lot of things will change. I think some for the good and some for the bad. I've observed, again, because I'm someone that pays attention to online behaviors, how people are behaving behind their computers versus how they would behave in a typical office setting. So, when you look at terms like inclusion and equity and belonging, those things are a little different now. And, do I think, for women in the workplace, will things change? I don't know. What I do know is that people are now sitting in their living rooms with a different sort of aspect on life than they did a few months ago. You may see a male CEO, sitting there with his shirt and his sweatpants on, and his kid is in the background, doing this. So you're seeing a different, and I've been on these, calls where, I'm on boards with people and, they typically would, show up in suits and things, and I have to fill out my chair when I get there. And now on the calls, everything, all of these layers are peeled back, and you see people and you see their offices. And for some of us who pay close attention on these calls, you look on their bookshelves, you see what books they're reading. Oh, they like this book. I like that book as well. So we can connect on a different level. And again, being able to hear someone's dog bark in the background, or their child saying, I'm hungry, I want a snack, or can you help me with this, is really just taking a layer off that we've never been able to do. So do I think it will help us? Absolutely, because when people have empathy and a different level of attunement, decisions are made a little differently. But I think, that can go either way.
Awesome. All right, let's turn to some questions from our audience. So we got a couple of people who sent some questions in during registration. So thank you to all of you who did that. So let's start off with this question from Natalie. Natalie says, where do you see the landscape going for virtual appointments, or also growing? I'm a 33-year-old African-American woman who spent 10 plus years building my career on helping businesses acclimate to Philadelphia customers through customer service. I'm currently hosting virtual appointments, but what does that appointment need to look and feel like for the consumer? I don't want to recreate the wheel. I want to innovate the experience.
I love that question. And I think the word experience means so much in the world of the virtual vertical. And that's what you have to focus on. How are you creating an experience for someone? I mean, one of our clients is of the deaf community, and we were using Zoom for about a few years. And she would point things out like, have you all looked at these different tools from an inclusion standpoint? Because when I'm on this, I have to bring, my interpreter on, but how about, more captions or text to screen? So I think you have to look at who your audience is and what kinds of experiences they want online. I think, listen, now that we've entered the world of the virtual vertical, it will not go away. It may change. It's going to be iterative, like things will come in and come out, because once we do come out on some other side of this, one of my friends had a virtual wedding, and, listen, in another year or two, when we are on the other side of this, if someone invites me to a destination wedding, I'm asking for a Zoom link, because I may not be able to get there. So it's provided a different lens for us to see, how we can do things a little differently. But for folks that are in this space and looking for ways to work with their clients or to optimize ways to work with clients or, in businesses in the virtual vertical, you have to pay attention to the word experience. Survey people. What do you want? What are you expecting? What are your goals? How do you want to feel in the virtual room? Am I providing you the necessary tools? How does my screen look to you? I've been on Zoom calls with people and sometimes it's blurry, or they're looking over here, or they're looking up here. For some folks, we give them a little hack of like, maybe put a sticky note at the very top of your computer or by your webcam so that you're focused and I'm looking at you and I'm not looking down here. Or, those are the, some of the folks who are like, hey, I'm up here. We've all seen that SNL skit. So you can learn from the comedy that's out there, but really be laser focused on the experience that you want to offer people.
Great. All right, we have a question from Kelly. She says, thank you for your time today. I admire your success and gracious spirit. Please share some insights on how you exercise business development strategies during the pandemic.
Oh, wow. I love that, Kelly. Biz development strategies. I mean, there are a couple of different ways that we work on biz dev, from a business, pipeline and business growth standpoint. And then biz dev is also, it goes back to the people. So for us, we bring on a lot of consultants and thought partners to help our team. I think, in this virtual vertical, we work with so many people that have the authoritative voice on, being the greatest, athlete, or, being the greatest filmmaker or being the greatest musician. So your focus then, is sort of tuned in onto what they're doing. So we bring in thought partners to help us with what that external landscape is, whether it's a sociologist that has their PhD and they understand sort of, the equity space a little better than we do, or we bring in very seasoned writers to help us with the new lexicon. We bring in a lot of thought partners to help us, to expand our mind and our lens. And then from the business development space, Skai Blue Media operates very much like a juried exhibit. Companies that we work with are folks that we vet, we have great relationships with, and that we're really passionate about and that we want to work with. So we don't do any external marketing or anything like that to talk about Skai Blue Media and its services. Everything has been done very much on a referral basis, or we're seeking companies out. I mean, I have a board that I'm looking at right now across the room where I've written out, here are the folks that we're working with, here's the people, here are the people that we want to work with. And it sort of operates as some sort of vision board. And we have to always just make sure from a business development standpoint that our mission and vision is aligned with the companies and the people that we want to work with.
Cool. All right, we have two people here who want some specifics. So Michelle says she wants an example of a client or brand who you think has recently transitioned messaging well. So I'm assuming right as a result of pandemic, someone who kind of switched their messaging. And then Dan asked a question that's somewhat connected. What's one specific example of a piece of work that Skai Blue Media did for a client in March or April?
Oh, gosh, there are so many. I mean, I'm thinking about some of our clients. One client in particular who shifted their work. There's a client that we work with, an AI platform called Hello Alice, that supports small businesses. And they quickly shifted to be more of a service provider to the thousands of businesses that they support, and focus more on COVID-19 specific messages by getting funding from other companies in order to enable and help entrepreneurs, minority-based entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs with $10,000 grants. So Hello Alice, one of our clients we've been working with, they again made that pivot to be very COVID centric, building out a resource center online on how to navigate things like grants and how to fill out all of the paperwork for your PPP for some of the small businesses that didn't have a traditional bank. So a lot of our clients have shifted into this place of being of service to their communities. If they were media platforms and things like that, they're now being more of a service. And so one of the things we sort of think, it may have been like a meme or something that we saw, but it's this idea of, acts over ads. So if you're in the space where you were just talking at people and you were sort of advertising to people, how can you do something for a business now? And how can that be an act of service? And I think Hello Alice is a good example of that. Even, our celebrity clients who have, been able to utilize their voice and their voice for influence to tell people, hey, don't look at me for the information, but here are the experts that you should look at for inspiration. But I think a lot of our clients, Alicia Garza, who is the co-founder of Black Lives Matter, started to do more studies around her work regarding the Black Futures Lab, where she was really pulling back data for communities that were the most impacted, or disproportionately impacted. So a lot of our clients are out there doing the work, and we're helping them to distill those messages and tell them to the right communities. And then there was something that somebody asked before that. I don't remember the question. I answered it. I answered the second question first.
Yeah, I think you kind of, and someone, Michelle, wanted to know just a client or brand who's recently transitioned messaging. Well, I think you answered both. And then the other one was, what's a specific example of work that Skai Blue has done for a client in March or April?
Yeah, another example is because, for Dell, we do a lot of work in the small business space, and I immediately started getting a lot of questions from small businesses. So our team had, an internal think tank, and we said, how can we work to provide all, we can't keep answering all of these messages for small businesses. We have we have clients that, we have to pay attention to. So we developed something called the Skai Blue Summit. So it was a summit, and we partnered with Dell. Dell then gave laptops out to, some of the small businesses that were participating. Again, to be of service, we invited experts in. We invited people that were doing great work around the world, in spaces, of equity and spaces of creativity and spaces of science and data. We invited all of those experts in, and we did a series of Skai Blue Summits to offer free advice to everyone that was there, and then to give them tactical and actionable steps in order to be more prepared. So I think that's another example. And we also have another one coming up. We're doing another 3-part series where we're partnering with Morgan Stanley to talk about brand storytelling during this time and how you effectively cut through the clutter. Well, we will be going a little more granular, and that kicks off next week.
Awesome. All right, Amanda says, hi, Rakia. Do you have any advice for grad students who hope to work for a creative agency during this time? I'm a grad student at Temple, and I was planning on applying for part-time positions and or internships, but I'm not sure if it's the right time because of COVID.
Listen, we have brought on new interns during this time, and I will say we also brought on new consultants. We've hired more people during this time. I got an email from a university, I think it was about 2 days ago, talking about co-op programs and being able to bring more students in so that they can learn. If companies are set up, and you'd be surprised, a lot of creative agencies, marketing agencies, advertising agencies, communications agencies, they are set up to have the infrastructure to have people on calls and Zoom calls. And when you can connect with your teams, like I was talking to you earlier in the call, you can do that. So I would tell that grad student to just go for it. Yeah. And do it and connect, and maybe it's connecting with the smaller company to get your footing right now. If you're getting no's from some of the larger companies, maybe focus on the smaller companies. If the smaller companies are at capacity, go ahead and focus on the larger companies, but don't let this time be the time where you can feel deflated or defeated if you are in the position to go out there. Now, there's some people that are like, I don't have the capacity to go out there and do anything right now, and I just want to rest. I respect those people. But if you're someone and you say you want to do something and you want to make sure that you're using this time to expand your creative landscape, definitely go for it. Don't wait.
Great. All right. So we have time for, I'd say, one more question. There's so many excellent questions, everyone. Thank you for submitting them. But I'd like to end on this one. So Karen says, hi, Rakia. How are you staying inspired these days and also maintaining work-life balance, especially when there's so much time on screen?
Oh, yeah, I just had to breathe for that one because, you know, I am on screen, you know, starting at, you know, 9:30 and sometimes, you know, until the late hours. I like to give myself breaks. I know what my capacity is. I know that I can't do, you know, strategy calls for longer than an hour. So if you can be a little more aware during this time, you know, paying attention to when your voice starts to sound weak or maybe your posture is changing, start to redesign your schedule to say, you know, I'll be on for a half an hour and then I'm off for a half an hour. I have to, I mean, I've built in a lunchtime for myself. I've built in dinner because I'm at home. So I do want to be able to break and like go outside with my kids and check on the garden that they're building. I do want to go pop into their rooms when they're having, you know, their music lessons or lacrosse, you know, they're practicing on their Zoom calls and doing lacrosse. So I think it's looking at what your current thresholds are, sort of evaluating that and then building out a schedule that works for you. I can tell you that my schedule in the very beginning is way different from how it is now. I had everything blocked out. We're going to start at 8 o'clock. We're going to get up. We're going to take a walk. Everybody's going to eat breakfast. Then we're going to do Zoom school. Then I'm going to get on my calls. And then we had this like internal algorithm that was out the window by day 4. And then it was like, okay, let's just do what works for you. And, you know, I always tell my children, do what brings you joy. If it warms your heart, do it. If you want to sit on the chair instead of at your desk, do that. I typically will switch it up for myself as well. Sometimes I'm at a desk, sometimes I'm lounging in the corner where there's artwork that inspires me. I mean, I will tell you, looking at the resilience of others right now is currently inspiring me. Some of these small businesses that don't have, you know, access or the tools to thrive, that are creating things that you've never seen. Those are the folks that I'm paying attention to. Those are the folks that are inspiring me, that are creating things and doing things online and creating content that you would have never seen before. Those are the folks that are really inspiring me. And then, you know, my regular juju is like having good weather and sunlight and seeing bright colors and, you know, being surrounded, you know, by my kids and my husband are the things that, you know, move me.
Awesome. That's really beautiful. Yeah. And I just love that idea of we're seeing things that would not have been possible before. Yeah. So that's really great. All right, Rakia, that concludes this week's session of Secrets from the C-Suite. Thank you so much for joining us. This was like really an honor.
Thank you so much. And your hair looks cute, Fabiola. I meant to tell you at the beginning. Super cute. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. To all of you at home, thank you so much for joining us for the second part of Secrets from the C-Suite. Next week is the third part of the series. GoPuff founders Yakir and Raphael will be joining us next Thursday. It's going to be a little later, starting at 1:30 next week. So please stay tuned for that. Sign up for that. Tell a friend. And thank you so much. And I hope you have a great afternoon. Bye.